Good evening and welcome. You're watching Trending Tonight with me, Sanket Upadhyay. Two stories that we are tracking. Story number one, what started as a grand show of unity, the first big rally of the Congress party of Rahul Gandhi, seemed to reflect some fault lines in the Congress unit of Punjab, where certain comments were made by Navjot Singh Sidhu and then a response by Channi and Rahul Gandhi. He tweeted also later, who said that usually we don't do it, but if that is what the people of Punjab want, we'll name a CM face. But we'll follow a process. Whatever the worker wants, we will name that person. So Channi versus Sidhu on Kaun Banega CM face is Rahul facing some sort of a Punjab rebellion. Exactly the kind that Mr. Sidhu did when Charanjit Singh Channi was made the chief ministerial face. We'll put that to a debate in just a short moment. Also on the show, is this the COVID unlock hypocrisy, where you would open everything, malls, parlors, gaming zones, but schools will not open. The big question is, why? Is there a need for our educational institutions to also be open? It's the future of the children at stake. That discussion, very important discussion, is going to come up in just a short moment from now. But first, let's begin this broadcast by getting you some moments of that drama as it unfolded. First of all, let's listen in this evening what exactly did Navjot Singh Sidhu say.
और मैं छाती ठोक के कहना आज पंजाब दे लोग पुछदे आ कि भाई इस एजेंडे नूं लागू कौन करू, बंदा किहड़ा देओगे, चेहरा किहड़ा देओगे, बोलो सही है कि नहीं है। असीं सारे इकट्ठे आ, असीं टीआरपी ਲਈ नहीं लड़ रहे, अगली सरकार बनाउण दे ਲਈ लड़ रहे हैं महाराज। और अगली सरकार बनाउण ਲਈ नीहां च भी चिणदी हो नवजोत सिंह सिद्धू जे उफ कर गया, लेकिन निर्णय लैण दी ताकत दईओ, भावें कोई निर्णय होए, बस दर्शनी घोड़ा ना बना दिओ, बाकी सब ठीक है।
So he says that don't treat me like a showpiece. Put me in a position where I can take decisions. We are not here together for TRP. We are here to fight elections. Wherever I go, people say, who's your chief ministerial face? Now, on this point, and a conflict point or a pain point which was introduced by Mr. Navjot Singh Sidhu, there came a response from Charanjit Singh Channi. Let's listen in what he had to say.
मैनू किसी अहदे दी लोड़ नहीं, किसी नूं मुख्यमंत्री बनाओ, एक जाने नूं चुन दो। चरणजीत चन्नी सब तो पहला मूहरे होके कन्वेंसिंग करेगा जिहदा भी तुसीं नाम रखोगे। ऐसी इकट्ठे है, इकट्ठे रहांगे, पंजाब वास्ते लड़ांगे, पंजाब वास्ते मरांगे।
So he says, make whoever you want to make the chief minister, we'll all stay together. As part of this speech, he also mentioned that there are some people, political opponents, who come and say that we are a divided lot. No, we are not. And then all of them came on the stage. And then Rahul Gandhi, upon noticing that this is a question that is being asked of him as a leader of the Congress, chose to intervene. What did he say? Let's listen in.
अगर कांग्रेस पार्टी चाहती है, क्योंकि आमतौर से हम ये नहीं करते हैं, मगर अगर कांग्रेस पार्टी चाहती है और कांग्रेस पार्टी का कार्यकर्ता चाहता है और पंजाब चाहता है, तो फिर हम चीफ मिनिस्टर का निर्णय आपके लिए ले लेंगे, अपने कार्यकर्ताओं से पूछकर, और जो सही व्यक्ति होगा वो पंजाब को आगे ले जाएगा।
So you heard what Rahul Gandhi had to say. He says, आम तौर पर हम ये नहीं करते. We usually don't do this, but if that is what the people of Punjab want, that is what the Congress worker wants, that is what Channi and Sidhu want, then we'll take a decision. And the worker is going to take a decision. Let's now quickly get you some details. Let's turn to this wall right here. So what are the advantages of having Mr. Navjot Singh Sidhu as the Chief Minister's face? He can unite the Jat 6. Most of the candidates that have been announced, spoken and unspoken, are Jat 6. Congress can be more aggressive in its approach, which Mr. Navjot Singh Sidhu has provided. Then, what are his disadvantages? Let's show you the disadvantages also. The party may lose, and that's why I lay stress on the word may lose, 30% of SC votes. Very, very high population of SC votes in Punjab. Number 2, he can be cornered over allegations of ties with Pakistan. Now let's talk about Mr. Channi, Charanjit Singh Channi. Congress, CM Kursi and the constant crisis. What are the advantages for Channi as the CM face? The only SC CM from the SC community, he is going to be the face of the party. When he was made the chief minister, he was hailed by the Congress party as this big face representing the SC community. Now, if you don't, or if you change him, then what message will you send to that SC community? That was he some sort of a night watchman? Number 2, SC CM face for the party. He is also capable of uniting everyone. You see, in a very short time, he was able to prove as this CM material of the Congress party after this big giant called Captain Amrinder Singh left. Everybody thought that who's going to fill in this void? Well, Mr. Channi did. But what are the disadvantages? There are allegations of family members being linked to the sand mafia. That is a big disadvantage. And disadvantage number 2, that if he is declared as the CM face, Mr. Sidhu may rebel again, just like he did when he offered to resign. In fact, he resigned as the Congress chief. And then after much cajoling, he came back and occupied that position. He's raising the same question again. So the big question on your screen right now, question number 1, is this a fresh rebellion between Channi and Sidhu? Number 2, the Congress's indecision, could this politically mean an advantage for the Aam Aadmi Party? And third, is the Congress now going to follow a sort of an Aam Aadmi Party model in selecting their chief ministerial face? The AAP was also accused of delaying that process, delaying the inevitable. Is the Congress only beginning that process now? That is going to be the big question that we ask. Okay, Raghav Chadha is an MLA and spokesperson of the Aam Aadmi Party and also co-in charge for the state of Punjab is now with us. Raghav, it seems that the Congress wants to select their CM face and they are going to ask Congress workers to do this. I feel that this sounds a little familiar from an exercise that was done by the Aam Aadmi Party. But what do you make of what is being said? There was a reference of Aam Aadmi Party in this theatre that played out.
Well, imitation, as they say, is the best form of flattery. So it's clearly that the Congress party is trying to emulate the strategy, the process, the methodology used by the Aam Aadmi Party. And we have pushed the Congress into declaring a chief ministerial face. Congress today, Sanket, as you have been very closely following Punjab politics, is a divided house. And mind you, these are not the two camps alone. There is no simple demarcation between Channi versus Sidhu. There are several camps. Forget Channi and Sidhu. Sunil Jhakar ji today thinks, why can't he become the first Hindu chief minister? Because he was the consensus candidate of the Congress legislature party once Captain Saab demitted. Sukhjinder Randhawa, the deputy chief minister who holds the most critical home portfolio, thinks he's the right person for this. And he, in fact, was almost announced as the CM face. Then Pratap Bajwa Saab, who's fighting from Kadia, thinks I have been most loyal to the Congress, I should become the CM. And then you have Manpreet Badal, who's very influential, who thinks I should be the successor. So therefore, there are several people, and whoever the Congress ultimately picks, all others will rebel, all others will perhaps stay in Congress, but ensure that Congress party loses. That's point number 1. Point number 2, it would be unfair to look at Charanjit Singh Channi as merely as this person who can pull the entire Dalit, votes en masse. First of all, the community never votes en masse. Every party will get a vote of a particular community. Yes, with he simply coming from a particular Ramdasiya community, Ravidasiya community, he may believe that, okay, I can pull some votes from the community. But mind you, Punjab, Sanket, refuses always to get divided on lines of caste. BSP started its politics in Punjab. Kashi Ramji hails from was born in Punjab, was a Punjabi. But he could not prosper as far as his politics is concerned in Punjab because Punjab refuses to vote on get divided on caste lines. BSP had to shift its politics from Punjab to UP to do this politics because Punjab is perhaps the most secular state and dividing it on caste religious lines goes against the very grain of Punjabiyat. And
so you're saying that this Dalit face and the politics emanating out of it is not going to work?
Yeah, and what are the options before us? If we were to compare Sidhu and Channi, since these are the two names that seem to be, in common imagination, the front runners. Navjot Singh Sidhu is a person who Captain Saab has said claims that he speaks to God 3 times a day. That means he's mentally unstable. Can you trust a man who's mentally unstable with a border state? That's point number 1. Point number 2, Channi Saab, his family and he himself is accused of illegal sand mining. I went to his constituency, Jindapur pinned in his constituency, and on live camera raided and exposed how illegal sand mining near a darya was going on.
So what we'll do is, you made your point, Raghav. Raghav, you made your point. Supriya Shinate, spokesperson of the Congress party, is now also with us. Supriya, do you fear that these fault lines have been exposed once again on live television, on the stage, where Mr. Navjot Singh Sidhu has repeated the same things, that I am not a showpiece, take a decision and don't just use me as a showpiece. Wherever I go, people say, who's your CM face? Why is this thing being lingering for a very long time?
No, I heard a Rashtriya Naam Sandesh by the Aam Aadmi Party for 4 minutes, which made no sense to me or to your viewers. First up, I would only want to say it's very convenient to quote Mr. Sidhu partially. What he also went on to say, no matter who you announce, I will remain a dedicated soldier. What Mr. Channi went on to say, that no matter who you announce, you've given me a huge opportunity and I will continue to work in the best interest of the party. That's our face. The Aam Aadmi Party struggled to get a president for its unit. They changed it 3 times, if not 4 times, if my information is correct. And look at the man they put up for the chief. Please keep quiet. Please keep quiet. I did not speak in between.
It's incorrect.
While you were
Your
making very
is incorrect, ma'am.
Yeah, okay, one by one, please. One by one.
Your information was also incorrect, and I think it's only fair that I expose the white lies that you tried to paint here. Firstly, the first thing that I would want to say is look at the chief ministerial candidate. I don't want to comment on anybody's addictions, but is a man like that suitable to be the chief minister of a border state, quote unquote? What is wrong with worshipping God? I don't understand. And also, why should I take Amrinder Singh's word? Because he's in bed with the BJP, just like Raghav Chanda and his party are B team of the BJP. I also want to state here, I think it's a very reckless and a very casual, callous statement to make. Mr. Sidhu has been an elected representative. Are you saying that elected representatives are mentally imbalanced? Is that what you're saying? And if you are saying that, then I feel sorry for you and your state of affairs. The reality is that, you could actually do precious little in any place outside of Delhi, and you believe Punjab is your big opportunity. Come the 10th of March, and all your attempts to spread your wings outside of Delhi will be clipped once and for all. The reality also is that if you really believe that you can deliver governance, please walk the talk in Delhi. Please do something for Delhi. Please at least ensure there is clean water that comes to the taps through your hollow announcements that you make.
May I
one moment, Supriya, if I may.
I did not speak in between. No.
We've heard you as well.
After the water
One moment,
it was a 4.5 minute pravachan. I will finish my pravachan and then you can take over. 4.5 minute का pravachan सुना था ना मैंने 20 साल पे
बोलने दीजिए
तो मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि सेलेक्टिव कोटिंग करना आप लोगों को भी बंद करना चाहिए. सिद्धू जी ने जो कहा और चन्नी जी ने जो कहा, आई थिंक वो सीधी सी बात है. I think we took a leap of faith with appointing Mr. Channi as Punjab's first Dalit chief minister.
Absolutely, Supriya, and that is why. If I could just quote recent history. Supriya, just recent history when Mr. Channi was elevated to the position of the chief minister. And the Congress party hailed it as a remarkable decision, which it was, right? Do you feel that the resignation at that point was an aberration? And that it will not happen again, resignation of Mr. Sidhu? are you fully confident that this time around, if the party takes a decision which is not to the liking of Mr. Sidhu will agree? Because he did not in the past. This is recent public memory.
Quite frankly, managing factions or managing people or managing egos within a party is the task cut out for the senior leadership. As a spokesperson, I don't think I can sit here and pass judgment. I think Mr. Sidhu plays an extremely important role in our scheme of things, just like Chief Minister Channi does. We've taken a leap of faith with Mr. Channi as Punjab's first Dalit Chief Minister. I really think it was revolutionary. BJP with its 17 governments could not do that even in one state. The AAP doesn't have the courage to commit something like this in Punjab, which has 34% Dalit population. So you can sit here and give moral sermons.
Why not stick to that decision? Supriya, why not stick to that decision? Why this indecision that we'll decide later?
May I, Sanjay?
No, there is no indecision. That's the problem. That's the problem. This is not indecision. This is what consensus building is all about. The people who are going to be led by, somebody as a leader have to decide who the leader will be, and the face will be announced. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think consensus building is important.
Now,
if we call Mr. Modi a Hitler, you know who's a bigger Hitler than him and who's less of a Democrat than him? Raghav Chadda's commander-in-chief.
In your own words, your allotted time of pravachan is also over. So back to Mr. Raghav
Chadda. My pravachan is over. He can take over.
Raghav Chadda.
Now, Sanket, first of all, I'm not going to respond to her jibes regarding governance in Delhi, because if I were to, quite frankly, Congress is not even an electoral player as far as politics of Delhi is concerned. They've been reduced to a big zero in election after election. So they have absolutely no locus to question us
you
as far
survive
as
from
politics
one
of
pole
Delhi
to
is
the other, and
concerned.
the pole belies your expectations
let's
each
pay
time.
attention to. Now, may I please? Let's concentrate on the two names that Supriya ji has mentioned. First is Charanjit Singh Channi. Yes, the Congress party did in fact take a leap of faith by appointing Mr. Channi as the Chief Minister and the successor to Captain Saab. But look what he did. His own nephew was raided. In fact, if I were to even assume that the raids were political in nature, let us assume that it was inspired and motivated by sheer politics. Even then, 10 crore rupees of hard cash was seized. Bank entries were 54 crores were seized. Crores and crores of worth of property, papers and fancy cars were seized. If this is the kind of wealth that one nephew of the Chief Minister can amass in 111 days, imagine the collective wealth of the family.
Who would you consider your political opponent? Like an opponent you would want to fear and prepare against. Mr. Channi or Mr. Sidhu?
They are team B of the BJP. So you know who their political opponent will be.
Let me finish, please. Let me finish. So the question is, can Congress party, which they very well can, appoint somebody as the chief ministerial candidate who is considered to be the sand mafia himself? He is considered to be the sand mafia of Punjab.
I'd like to answer that question, please.
Sure, okay. Supriya's response. Running out of time, so quick response. Right to reply, please. Yes, Supriya Shinet's response, please.
I just have a very brief point to make.
And as far as Sidhu
let the law take its own
course. Don't take my word.
Please.
Just let me finish.
Raghav, please, don't keep quiet. It's my turn to speak. It's my turn to speak. Let's be gentlemanly about this.
And as far as Navjot Singh Sidhu is concerned, you don't have to ask Captain Saab or me. Ask Navjot Singh Sidhu. He himself will say that I speak to God, the Almighty God, 3 times a day. He is mentally unstable.
Sanket, can I please
Okay, very quickly, please. I'm running out of time.
You know of a human who speaks to God 3 times a day?
You are liable. Raghav Chadda, you are liable in a court of law for calling a democratically elected person mentally unstable. It looks like there's instability in your quarter. Firstly,
ask him to sue me.
Okay. I'll have to stop this here.
I just have to say one thing.
Yeah, very
I
quick.
personally believe these were all politically motivated raids. Raghav, please don't be this.
Okay, politically motivated
I believe
raids.
this was politically motivated raids.
Okay.
And if the law has to take its course,
Okay. Thank you very much, Supriya Shinet, as well as Raghav Chadda, for joining us on debate number 1. This is a crucial decision that the Congress party has to take, which it is going to take, Rahul Gandhi says, in a few minutes or few days or I don't know, there are only a few days left or a few weeks for the Punjab election. Story number 2 now, and let's quickly bring up our two guests. Anubha Srivastav Sahai, President of the India White Parents Association, and Yamini Iyer, President of CPR India, on a very crucial issue, and that is whether schools should be open or not, and why is it that we have this COVID hypocrisy where everything else is open but schools are always shut? Why? Let me ask this question to Ms. Anubha Srivastav Sahai. What is your opinion, Ms. Sahai? Schools should be opened or not?
See, as far as schools are concerned, we never said that don't reopen school. Even earlier when the schools were reopened, we are of the opinion that let the vaccination happen and then you can reopen school. But now the opinion is like vaccination, as many people are saying, is not mandatory, is not required. We are okay with that. But the only concern is that there is a complete violation of all the COVID protocols. That is only on paper. If you will see the schools which are being reopened now and even earlier, all the schools were flouting the norms. Then we don't have transport facility for children. Most of the children, 80 to 90% children, they use public transport in all across all the states. And in cities like Delhi, Mumbai, you may be having some kind of a transport facility, but yes, many parents are not in a position to send their children to school because of this reason also. Secondly, the COVID protocols which are being imposed in schools are not being followed by school authorities. Neither there is any check and balance by the education department or any other local body or the authorities whether the schools are following the COVID protocols or not. How the students are going to commute, that is the biggest concern for parents. Okay. And whether the schools are going to follow all these protocols or not, whether they are going to take any responsibility, be it government or education department or schools. Okay. When it comes to taking responsibility, they say no, we will not take any responsibility.
Yamini Iyer, so the main problem here is that schools have to take responsibility, and we do see schools saying that we are not liable. But the point is, this safe route of just keeping them shut while everything else is open comes at a huge cost, and that cost is education.
Absolutely. You said it, Sanket. It's complete COVID hypocrisy. We have open markets, we have open malls, we have open gyms, we have opened airports. I can assure you COVID protocols are not being followed all that well in any of these places. Opening up a schools to ransom on the back of COVID protocols not being followed is not a good argument. But I think it's important for us to recognize 2 years of school closure, particularly for primary schools. The state of Delhi, over which the argument with the DDMA has happened today, now holds the unique gold medal distinction of being amongst the longest pandemic-induced school closures. Uganda, which held this distinction, opened up on the 10th of January. There is no science behind this continued closure. There is enough science to tell us that the learning losses, the emotional losses, the psychological losses are significant. My CPR colleague Jishnu Das studied the closure of schools in Pakistan during an earthquake for 4 months. 4 months of school closure led to a loss of nearly 15% of lifetime earnings amongst those children who lost out being in school. Think what 2 years can do to our children. If we as a society believe in our children, believe in the future of our children, we have to pressurize our governments to open schools.
But you know, their response is that everything is mated to the progression in COVID cases. If the cases are high, how can you expect a government to open schools? For instance, now Mumbai has opened schools. Tamil Nadu is saying from 1st of February we'll open schools and colleges. And similarly, when the right time arrives, Delhi will do the same.
Sanket, we have adopted the policy of abundance of caution, and we forgot ever about what will we do, at what point will we open schools. That policy of abundance of caution is now clearly leading to abundance of harm. There is nothing in the GARP policy of the Delhi government or the DDMA that explains to us under what conditions will schools reopen, particularly primary schools. So schools have been closed for 700 plus days. 2 long years have been lost out for our children. The costs are high. We are failing an entire generation of this country. Is this what we want as a society? I certainly don't want this as a parent for my children.
I think that's a very, very important point that Ms. Yamini Iyer is making. Thank you very much, Ms. Sahai, as well as Ms. Iyer, for very articulately putting your points of view. It's important to hear both sides, and I'm sure you're representing the voice of many parents across the country. You know, this constant battle that parents have in their head to send a child to school or not. But the point is, in our response as governments, we can't have this very hypocritical or hypocrisy-filled argument that you will open everything else, but you will keep the schools shut. Good night and goodbye.